That's right, we've been doing Thorgiween for so long now, we now have to watch horror pornos, everyone. Okay, it's not that, but, wow, yesterday we watched Wishmaster, and I walked away from that saying, you know what, sometimes you can't judge a book by its cover. I thought this was going to be pretty bad, but I actually ended up really enjoying this film. Species reminds us that sometimes you can judge a book by its cover.
I did not see this movie, but judging by your reaction, it was probably for the best.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Okay, some people out there are going to say, well, this isn't, like, actually horror. I grew up in the 90s. I remember when this movie first came out. It was being pitched as horror, and you watch this film, there's definitely horror elements in here. However, this is a 90s horror film, a 90s horror sci-fi film, so it is also loaded with tons of the other crap that 90s horror sci-fi films did, in which they went, oh man, we can use all this CGI in here? Well, that means that we can get action-packed in this thing. In the 90s, if you wanted to be horror and you wanted to have some special effects, you also had some asshole there in the producer's room going, well, you gotta make it jam-packed with action, everybody. So I can understand someone watching this and going, well, it's not really horror. But no, this was supposed to be horror. And they wanted this to be a big new franchise. And as I said, this is the B Squad week. This is the horror icons who, they didn't make it. But part of the rule for this week is that in order to be considered, you did have to at least get a few sequels. There's like 4 Species movies. And I was looking this up. I don't know how. I don't know how this kept going. I mean, in the 90s, sure, I can understand it, but once we got to that point where the internet was jam-packed with so much porn, who on earth was still that desperate that they were looking up new Species movies? Because that is all that this movie had going for it when it came out in the 90s, is that, hey, it's a monster, but she's a hot lady who's naked and wants to have sex all the time. Man, when you look back at this thing, this is so just the embodiment of the worst things of the 90s. And I remember back during the 90s was when those stories first started to circulate around about how sleazy a lot of Hollywood producers were. Everybody always kind of knew that Hollywood producers were sleazy. Like, that stuff started to become well known back in the 70s. But it was back in the 90s in which it was like, no, you don't understand. There's a lot of pervs out there. And watching this movie about this alien creature, it's not an alien creature, it's something that's alien DNA mixed with human DNA that creates this brand new species that just wants to mate, and then its birth creatures, children, well, that's the word, children. I forgot the word for a moment.
What are those small things that bigger things make? What?
Babies. I forgot the word for a moment. It was one of the weirdest moments of Age of Ultron. Okay. So yeah, you can look at this movie about, it's like, yeah, we're gonna make a monster movie, but she's gonna be a hot lady who just wants to have sex all the time. And you're like, oh my god, you can feel the sleaze from the producer with his big honking cigar just there the entire time. Just, oh my god. But yeah, it's got so many of the other terrible trappings of the 90s, just, they had special effects, but you could tell, oh, we ain't ready for these special effects. But they wanted to shove that in there no matter what. Like,
that's the big issue with, like, 90s movies. Like, it's when CGI was still very new, but they want to shove it in every movie.
Ready. It wasn't ready yet. Man, you remember the Scorpion King from that second Mummies film and how notoriously bad that CGI is? The Species monster is basically exactly the same. It's basically that same level of terrible. There are moments in which the Species monster is jumping around these rocks like she's jumping around a cliff, and you can so tell those are not on the same layer. Like, the foot is even like here's where the cliff ends, and the foot, like, the bottom of her foot goes a little bit below. Like, oh no, dude. Oh man, she's jumping on air right now, and you're trying to tell me it's the rocks. Ooh man. Yeah, it ooh man. But also, like, we mentioned this with Wishmaster, like, the first time that you met the protagonist in Wishmaster, it has this 90s alt-rock music just start playing because they wanted to cram a music video in there. Oh, there's tons of that in here, too. There's tons of that in here. But here's the craziest part about this movie. This movie is jam-packed with huge names. Huge names. Alfred Molina is in here. Forrest Whitaker is in here. Ben Kingsley is in here, which this was back during that time. I don't know if this is still true for Ben Kingsley, but there was a time period in the late 90s, early 2000s where Ben Kingsley was in something. There was a 20% chance it would be gold and 80% chance it would be crap. He has one of the weirdest careers of any actor out there, and no one really talks about it anymore. I think he's finally turned his career around. I think he finally fired his terrible, terrible agent, or he solved whatever tax problems he probably had, because that's typically what happens. Like, it's the Nick Cage disease, where it's like, yeah, I just gotta say yes to whatever lands on my desk because I got money to pay. But yeah, it is. He basically had like a Nicolas Cage career, except Nicolas Cage, even when he's in something bad, he'll be crazy enough in it that he's enjoyable enough.
Like, yeah, that's the thing. Like, Nick Cage, like, he just, like, goes all out no matter what.
No matter what he's in, he gives it 100%. You gotta give him credit on that. Ben Kingsley shows up for so many terrible films in the late 90s, early 2000s. And the moment that you see him, you're just like, oh God, we are in for some pain right now. And yeah, he is one of the first people that you see in this movie, and I just sat there going, oh no, this is the canary in the coal mine right now. God, what is that other guy? He was in Clockwork Orange, he was in Tank Girl, he's probably in some other things that I'm completely forgetting, but he is this famous actor, white hair, old British guy, who, when you see him in things, it is another one, he is another one of those actors that you're just like, oh God, no, this is going bad. This is going bad right now, everybody. He's not in this, but it's that same situation with late 90s, early 2000s Ben Kingsley. Also, one of the weird things, there is a famous actress in here before she even got famous. Because this creature, this species monster, it starts off as a little girl, and then it goes into a cocoon, and then it comes out as a full-grown, sexy adult, which, yes, that's weird and creepy. Yes, that is very creepy. But the actress who plays her as a little girl, her name is, I think it's Michelle Williams, is who it is, who played Marilyn Monroe in My Weekend with Marilyn, and then her career kind of tanked after that, which really sucks because My Weekend with Marilyn is so good and she is so good in it. And now she's playing Eddie Brock's girlfriend in the Venom films. Like, oh no. Oh, every part of that sentence is bad. Oh.
She's just like notorious for being in these like CGI monster films.
Oh God, that's her typecast. Do you have a really bad CGI space alien in your movie? Call Michelle Williams. Oh, man, yeah. But I remember when that popped up in the credits, I went, wait, hold on a second, I know that name. So this movie, it also, like I said, I can understand somebody saying this isn't horror, this doesn't count as horror, because it has so many action elements in there as well, which again was a staple of 90s horror. Someone was like, well, where's the explosions in all this?
Where's the kaboom?
Where's the kaboom? Yeah. Like, I remember when Jason left the 80s and entered the 90s, his very first 90s movie starts off with just the FBI springing on Camp Crystal Lake and blowing him to smithereens. I went, oh wow, yeah, true master of horror going on right here. Okay, and yeah, this film, Alfred Molina, Forrest Whitaker, and two other individuals, and Ben Kingsley, all form like this task force that are hunting down the species, and we follow them for the majority of this film, and it'd be one thing if we were following like people who, you know, they could possibly be victims, they were people who felt like, you know, they were in danger, but no, we're following the hunters in this entire film, and all I could think was, well, that immediately takes some of the suspense away from all this. Like, there is a moment in here in which the species fakes her own death by having a car crash, And then you see like a helicopter appear over the horizon and fire Tomahawk missiles at the remains of it and just cause giant, massive explosions. It is really hard for me to feel afraid for anyone in this film when I know that at the press of a button, they can summon in an airstrike.
Perhaps it is not the species we should be afraid of.
Oh god, that's the other. Oh man, I'm sorry. I gotta bring this up. That is the other big staple of 90s films. Just not even 90s horror, but 90s films in general is the who is the true monster. Maybe we're the ones ruining everything. Because yeah, the 90s is when people started to get really environmental. I wish that we had learned that lesson back then. But yeah, I'm not coming in here and being like against environmentalism. It is more necessary than ever these days. But back in the 90s was when everybody started to realize, oh, maybe we're destroying the planet, everybody. Maybe we should have just thrown our garbage wherever we wanted for decades and decades and decades. I remember when I was back in college, I had a history professor who was talking about how, yeah, back in the 70s, we would eat a burger while driving in our cars, and we would just take the wrapper and the box and our drink and just toss them out the window, and we would play a game to see how many other cars behind us we'd get hit with it when we chucked it out. And the entire classroom just looked at him like, what the fuck was wrong with you guys? And he was like, we didn't know it was going to destroy the planet back then. And again, we all just looked at him like, where do you think it went? What do you think happened when you threw shit out your window? What do you think happened to it? It's like, yeah, it is just stunning to me sometimes. But anyway, that's getting off on another tangent there. But yeah, that was another staple of 90s films is that they would always have to cram that environmental message in there. And the species, they're afraid that if it mates, they could have like thousands of children all at once. They could just like spawn eggs or something. And then there'd be thousands of these things running around. And then they would mate. And then that would just overrun the entire planet within days. So they have to kill this thing before it mates. And there's one of the scientists who were part of this task force, she keeps going, yeah, but who's the real monster? Maybe mankind deserves this. And I was like, no one's buying this. Like, no, like there hasn't been any kind of a setup. Like we haven't seen anything in this film to imply how terrible humans are, other than there's a government lab where they tested it on this creature. But like they're saying, yeah, well maybe all of mankind deserves this. I was just like, okay, pump the brakes there for a second on this. It's so weird how just tactlessly they just shoved that message in here, but 90s movie, so they had to shove it in there. I'm really glad that it feels like we have skipped over the 90s nostalgia stage, because the 80s nostalgia stage lasted for like a decade longer than it was supposed to, and all I can think is that it came time for us to naturally move from 80s nostalgia into 90s nostalgia, and everybody just went, oh yeah, but the 90s were bad. Like, everything was bad from it. Like, some of the music was good, movies though, bad. Yeah, like, when I think of good 90s movies, it's like Jurassic Park, cool. The Matrix, but that was 99, so it like barely snuck in.
Yeah, it was either like the early 90s or the late 90s.
It was like the last grasp of the 80s or like the first start of the 2000s.
Yeah, the mid 90s was where all the shit happened.
Like I said, Jurassic Park was pretty much it. I mean, yeah, there were lots of great like mature and adult films out there, and great Oscar-winning things and such, blah 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 blah. But when I talk about like mass audience movies, no, there was not a lot of good stuff in the 90s. But yeah, so this film, it's not good, and I gotta be really, this is maybe the least enjoyable film that I have seen in Thorgiween. It's not the worst film I've seen, but we've seen worse films that are fun to make fun of. This film, it's just like getting a really bad sandwich. It's just like you just gotta sit there and just keep eating. It's like, oh no. There's nothing, I don't really want to talk about this because I don't really want to think about it.
I don't want to make another sandwich.
But I have to finish this. Oh no. That's what it is. It's like, it's just you eating something bad, but you have to eat all of it. That's what this movie is. There have definitely been worse films that I have seen for Thorgiween, But man, there's just nothing fun about this film. There's nothing enjoyable to take away. It's just a big pile of, oh God. I had to sit through this thing. And towards the end of this film, when they get into this big fight with the species, it all, like, man, again, it just had to come in here and be like, well, now we're an action film, including, like, they even have, like, the big catchphrase line at the end that they want everyone to remember, but it's an awful catchphrase. It's just something like, it's something like, I can't remember what it was. But I do remember it ends with motherfucker. And they stop the camera, they just stop the movie, zoom in on this guy's face, and the music stops as he just like shows over motherfucker. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Why are you shoving an action catchphrase in here? And it just feels so unnatural too. Like there have been horror movies that have shoved action catchphrases in there before. I've seen that stuff happen. I mean, hell, I love the Evil Dead franchise. But that thing, like, yeah, they stopped the entire movie for those catchphrases too, but they're like aware of it. It's supposed to be cheesy, it's supposed to be goofy and weird, and that's the reason why it works. Here, they're like, this is gonna be like the stand up and applaud, like, this is gonna be the most kick ass moment of all time. It's like, no, this is really dumb. Oh my gosh. It's not even clever or anything. Yeah, so it's bad. So for anybody out there who might, like, for anybody out there who's around my age and you might remember what it was like when this film came out and everybody was talking about, it does not live up to any of the memories that people might have had about. It clearly was just here to be a thing that horny people were just like desperate to watch. Like that's all it is. That is all, let's be real, that is all that this is. It is hot lady is constantly naked and wants to have sex. That is entirely what this film is, and they tried to pass it off as being so much more than that, and it absolutely is not. So yeah, if anybody out there has like vague memories of this coming on like Showtime when you were a kid, and you're just like, yeah, I wonder if that actually was good. I never actually watched any of it. No, it was not. And for anybody out there who is now getting to that point in which you're younger than me, and you're like, well, what happened in the 90s? What were some good horror films in the 90s? Not this at all. Yeah, it's bad. So yeah, I feel like this is the perfect balance to yesterday's Wishmaster. Because I said that yesterday that like, yeah, 20% of that movie is not great, but the other 80% is actually really enjoyable. This is almost the exact opposite.
It's like 20% was actually good?
Forrest Whitaker is decent. Actually, Forrest Whitaker and Alex Molina have actually some pretty good chemistry. I'm actually hoping that I am remembering his name. If that is the wrong name, I will correct it down below. But yeah, they've actually got some decent chemistry. Oh my God, that's it. I was like, no, there has to be another thing I can imply here. Nope, that is it. Maybe that's the reason why they're the only two people who salvaged their careers after this film. Oh, man. Yeah, that's kind of it. That's all I got. There's also, like, a moment in which you see her in full makeup, not CGI full makeup. It's decent makeup. I'm trying. I'm really trying this one, folks. This movie ends with them having to, like, storm some underground cave that exists in the sewers to find the species creature, and then she attacks one of them, and weird, like, tentacle whips come out of her nipple to choke one of them. Oh my God.
Wow, that's some kinky shit right there.
Yeah.
Some things should just stay on the internet and not be.
Listen, I'm not going to kink shame. You be into whatever you want to be into, but maybe don't dedicate an entire big budget movie to what you're into. I'm just saying. Just saying. So yeah, that's it. We only got one more day in the B Squad, and I can guarantee tomorrow's gonna be better than this. Yeah, tomorrow's gonna be probably the most controversial episode of the B Squad, because I know a lot of people are going to go, no, this is A Squad. And it's like, you might want to ask some people outside the world of horror about that one. But yeah, come back for that one. Bye, everybody, and happy Halloween.